topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I have got an incredible show for you. Actually, two shows today. The first one, I hate to say, I got a speeding ticket, but I learned a lot about auto accidents and what's going on out there on the streets, and I could not have had a better guest to come on with us than attorney Robert Slim. Good afternoon, attorney. Robert? Oh, there you are.
Yes, I am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too, Steve.
So I want to start off the show. We're going to talk about your firm and about what you do. But I got to tell you, I got a ticket, and I'm here in South Florida. You're in Dallas, but I got a ticket, and I went to court. But Robert, what I learned is there are so many drivers out there with no insurance.
Oh, yeah.
I'll bet you I had at least 60 people in front of me going before the judge who didn't have insurance. Their driver's license was suspended. And I was shocked. Out of one court, all the people who do not have insurance.
I mean, estimates are that 17% of drivers out there, at least as far as Texas statistics are concerned, that 17% of drivers out there are driving without the state required liability insurance. And I would say the last time I saw that statistic, it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. My experience since then is I think that percentage is higher now. I think it's probably 20%. You're probably looking at 1 in 5 drivers out there are driving without insurance. And I wouldn't be surprised if even higher than that, 1 in 4, something like that. So it's important that you carry your own insurance in the event you have an accident with somebody who's uninsured, because it's becoming more and more likely that you can have an accident with somebody who's uninsured. And so you want to carry uninsured motorist coverage in addition to the state required liability coverage. Because it's just becoming more and more common now that people are driving without insurance. It's unfortunate, but that is the case. And if you have uninsured motorist coverage, well, that'll help step in the shoes of the absent insurance company and get you taken care of as far as your car and any injuries you may have.
Robert, there's not much you can do for somebody who's injured in an auto accident and the other party doesn't have insurance, is there?
Well, yeah, I mean, there really isn't. I mean, yes, you can go and sue the other driver, but what are you going to get? I mean, if they have money, they would have insurance. But
right, exactly.
They don't have money. So yeah, you can spin your wheels and go down to court and sue them and win and get a judgment, and the judgment isn't worth the paper it's written on. So in the end, you need to get taken care of. You need to get your car fixed. You need to get your medical bills paid. You need to get something for your pain and suffering. And that's where your uninsured motorist comes in. And that's why I always recommend that people carry uninsured motorist coverage.
Well, Robert, tell people about your background and about your firm.
Well, I went to law school. I got my law degree from Baylor Law School, and started working here in Dallas in 1994 or 95. That is, I got my I graduated from Baylor in the spring of 94. And then I took the bar exam in July of 94 and got my results in November of 94. And I'll tell you that time period between July and November, waiting for those bar results, was pretty nerve wracking. But I got my bar results and they were good, and that's what I wanted. So I got my license and came to Dallas and in early 95, came back to Dallas. Dallas is actually my hometown. Came back to Dallas and got a job working as an associate lawyer in a personal injury law firm. And that's where I learned the business and worked there for about 4 years until I decided to go off on my own. And I've been off on my own since 99, something like that. And I've been doing this ever since. So basically since 1995 to the present, I've been doing personal injury and car wreck litigation.
That's your biggest area is automobile accident injuries. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, auto accidents. I do handle some slip and falls and things like that, but it's mostly car accidents. Yeah.
Well, today I wanted to talk today about how trials work when there's an injury case in regards to insurance. How does liability insurance work on an injury case?
Okay. Yeah. And I touched on this in some of the other interviews we've done before, Steve. And, people have a misconception of what liability insurance is. So when you get into an accident with another driver and that driver is at fault, assuming they have insurance, they're going to have what's called liability insurance. And people are under the misconception that if the other person has insurance, then that insurance is required to pay the claim and act fairly and do what's in your best interest, the injured party. That is completely wrong. Liability insurance is exactly what it is. It insures against your liability. Well, who's the person that's liable? Well, it's not you. You're the innocent party. It's the other person. So the other person carries liability insurance in case they get into an accident and they're at fault, and then their insurance company comes in and protects them in the event someone else, that is you, has a claim against them. So yes, you're dealing with the insurance company, you're dealing with the insurance adjuster, and it feels like an insurance claim because, you're dealing with an insurance adjuster, but it's not really an insurance claim. It's really a legal claim because what you're basically doing, the way Texas law recognizes the status of the parties, is that you, the injured party, is making a claim against the other driver, and the other person's insurance company is stepping in for their driver to protect them against your claim. So naturally, they're going to be talking to you about the case, maybe even trying to settle the case, but they're not doing it because they feel like they want to take care of you. They're doing it because they want to protect their driver against you. And the way they do that is two ways. Either they settle the case with you or they defend their driver. So if you're not able to settle the case with them, then you have to sue the other driver. And we'll talk about that later in this video, but you have to sue the other driver, and then they have to defend their driver. That is, hire a lawyer and everything. So while you're talking to the adjuster thinking you're dealing with an insurance claim, you're not. You're dealing with a legal claim, because in the end, that insurance company has to defend their driver from your claim. And that's the way liability insurance works.
And these insurance companies are very good at what they do. How many cases do you get from people who start off trying to handle this themselves and then they came to you?
Well, I'll tell you what, luckily that's a smaller number than I'd want it to be. Because I think a lot of people appreciate that they're involved in a serious situation and they don't want to start doing anything themselves because they can mess things up. I would say, 1 in 5 cases, I may have a case where somebody calls me and says, hey, look, I tried to handle this myself and it's not working. And right when I hear that, a red flag goes up, and I think to myself, okay, how much work am I going to have to do to go in and bandage up everything that's been done before I got on the case? And so I talked to the client quite in depth about their conversations with the adjuster and everything that's happened. And I try to get a feel for what happened. And if it's something I feel like I can get in and fix, then I'll take the case. But sometimes I've run into situations where the client just, the potential client just messed things up so much that I say to myself, I don't know that I want to get my hands dirty in this one, because I wish you'd called me from the very beginning. If you'd called me from the very beginning, we could have avoided all this. But now your case is kind of like in a landfill, and I got to sift through all this garbage to try to revive it, So I always recommend, at the very least, call a lawyer, get the free consultation. Any personal injury lawyer will give you a free consultation. Call me, I'll give you a free consultation, and it won't cost you a dime, and you can make a decision from there about what you want to do. But what I will advise you to do from the get-go is don't talk to anybody until you decide whether or not you want to hire a lawyer. And when you decide you want to hire a lawyer, by all means, hire one soon and get started that way.
Robert, I don't understand this, and I've been doing this for 12 years. Maybe it's because people don't understand how you charge, but you do this on a contingency basis. And that means that when they come and sit down with you, they don't have to write you a check right then, that you get paid based on how much you get your client.
Correct.
I don't understand why somebody would not just allow an attorney like yourself to handle this for them.
Well, and that's true. I mean, I think that there are a lot of people out there that think that they're giving away a portion of their case to their attorney. But that's based on the assumption that the client can work on their own without an attorney and get that same amount. And that's where they go wrong in their thought process. What ends up happening is that the case gets thrown into quicksand, and it just sinks farther and sinks farther, and it's just hard and harder to rescue the case, and the case loses value. When you come in without a lawyer, it's simply like bringing a knife to a gunfight. This adjuster knows what they're doing. All right, they know what they're doing. They've been doing this for years. And as a matter of fact, some insurance companies have cases where they have one set of adjusters that work on cases where there is no lawyer, and they have a different set of adjusters that work on cases where there is a lawyer. Well, why do you think that's the case? Well, that's the case because your claim is going to be viewed differently when you have a lawyer. So it's important for you to get a lawyer. When you have a claim and you're dealing with an adjuster, they know how to handle you. And basically they take the position that, if you want us, come get us if you can, and you can't, because you don't have the legal tools to do it. And that could probably segue into our next topic, which is what happens if you're not able to settle your case. And this kind of reflects back on what we talked about earlier, is that you're involved in a legal claim,
Yeah, I told you this story once before. My son considers himself a great salesperson, a good negotiator, and he tried to handle this himself to save some money. But he will tell you now, after going through it, that he should have hired an attorney, that he admitted he left a lot of money on the table, not really knowing what he was doing.
Yeah, and this is just the same thing as that. People think that it's an issue of negotiation. It's really not an issue of negotiation. It's an issue of presentation. How do you set up the case and present it in a way that the adjuster can appreciate that they have an obligation, that they have a threat, that there is something coming down the pike that can drastically hurt their client? and you have to put the adjuster on the defensive. And the way you do that is you show the case in such a way. And it's not just, I'm not talking about graphics and videos, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about setting up your case in such a way that from a legal standpoint, the adjuster can look at it and say, yep, we have exposure here. And once the adjuster looks at that, you got them on their heels. When you got them on their heels, that's the best way to negotiate a settlement. It's just to let them know that you're prepared or will be prepared to present the case in the most in the best legal light for your client. And you had mentioned, how the attorney gets paid. Well, all this work that the attorney does in getting the case properly presented is all done in advance of getting paid. And then when the attorney negotiates a settlement and collects for the client, the attorney takes a percentage out of what's collected. And if there's nothing collected, then there's nothing owed to the attorney. And that's true about the expenses as well. So, like I said before, there is nothing for someone to lose by calling an attorney, at least getting the consultation, getting the information, and making an informed decision on whether to hire an attorney and who to hire, because it costs them nothing.
Yeah, your experience allows you to tell your client how much the case is worth. Now, it might not be exactly right, but you've been doing this long enough and it's seen enough, whereas they have no idea what the case is worth.
Well, I would say this. There's no way for an attorney to tell you what a case is worth at the beginning, because you got to kind of look at it as it's a work in progress. Every injury case is a work in progress. You start with on day one, you have the accident. Well, day 2, 3, and 4, you're getting medical treatment, you're injured, you're assessing your injury. Still, there's no way to know how much treatment you're going to need, what your medical bills are going to be. The attorney will have a better idea about the value of your case after you're done with your treatment, after all the medical bills and medical records are collected, after all the evidence is collected, and then the case is ready to submit to the insurance company. Now the attorney has a better idea of what the value of the case is. And the value of the case isn't necessarily determined on what the case is necessarily worth. There's also another factor, is how much is there to collect. So if you've got a case that's worth $60,000 or $70,000, but the insurance policy is only a $30,000 policy, well, that's all you're going to collect is $30,000. So what's the case worth? It's worth $30,000. So, but what you also have to appreciate is getting a hold of that $30,000 isn't easy. So just because your case is worth $60,000 or $70,000 doesn't mean that getting a hold of that $30,000 is going to be easy, because it's not, especially if you don't have a lawyer. Then you have a policy that's $100,000 or $200,000. Then you can collect more in your case. You may be able to collect the whole $50,000, $60,000, or $70,000 that your case is worth. So it's not just an issue of what your case is worth and what it looks like. You always want that to look the best, that part of it to look the best. But at the same time, you have to find out, how much is actually available to collect.
Why can't you sue the insurance company directly?
Well, Texas is not a direct action state. That's what it's called. You're talking about a direct action. Some states allow direct actions. That is, when you are making a claim against the other driver and their insurance company. Now, this does not apply to your own insurance company. So, for instance, if you're making a claim on your own insurance, yes, you can sue your own insurance company directly because you have a contractual relationship with your insurance. But Texas does not recognize any contractual or legal relationship between you and the other driver's insurance. They see the legal and contractual relationship as being between the insurance company and their driver. So in Texas, you can't jump over the other driver and sue his insurance company. Texas views it as though your claim is against the other driver. So when you are not able to settle your case with their insurance company, you have to sue the other driver, because Texas views it as you were injured by the other driver's negligence, and therefore your legal claim is really against the other driver. So when the court papers are filed, it's really, Jane Doe versus John Doe or whoever. It's people. It's not insurance companies on the paperwork. It's people. And so that's all the jury will hear. So if you end up going to trial, you're not even allowed to mention insurance. And that's a whole other topic that I'd like to talk about. But yes, that's why you can't sue the insurance company directly, because Texas is not a direct action state, and you have to sue the actual at-fault party, and their insurance company basically sits in the background.
Okay, so why can't you mention the insurance company at trial?
And this is something that has been in the rules of evidence for the longest time in Texas. There's two philosophies. There's the philosophy that justifies the rule, and then there's my philosophy. So this is what it is. First of all, the rule is that the issue of liability insurance is not allowed to come in on a civil case, because the theory is that if a jury hears that there is insurance, that the defendant is covered by insurance, then a jury is more likely to find against the defendant only because he has insurance, or they're more likely to award a higher amount of damages because they know that there's insurance. So the rules of evidence want to avoid that sort of prejudice. And so they say, listen, what's really relevant in the case is how the accident happened and what your injuries are and what your medical bills are. That's all that's relevant. Whether or not the person had insurance is irrelevant. So bringing it in is not only irrelevant, but can have a harmful effect or an irrelevant effect by having the jury feel less sympathetic to the defendant and more likely to award in favor of the plaintiff only because of the existence of insurance. So that's why they keep the issue of insurance out. And it's followed to a T. If you mention insurance in a civil case, in a car wreck case in Texas, it's grounds for a mistrial. The judge will, wow. The judge can, depending on how bad the offense was, can declare mistrial and discharge that jury and reset it for a new trial. So it's a rule that's heavily stuck to. Now, that's the philosophy behind the rule. My philosophy is, and the effect of that rule, in my view, is that if insurance is not mentioned in a trial, in a car wreck case, a lot of times the jurors are sitting there thinking, why haven't we heard about insurance? Maybe the driver wasn't covered by insurance. Maybe we should have sympathy for him. To me, I think that there's an opposite effect, that it ends up having a prejudicial effect against the plaintiff, the injured party, because now the injured party kind of looks like the bully. And they're coming after this defendant. They coming after this defendant for $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 judgment. And the jury never hears about insurance, and they assume that the defendant didn't have insurance. Well, let me tell everybody out there. I'm going to tell everybody out there, if you are called down to jury duty on a personal injury case in Texas, 99.9% chance there is insurance behind the defendant. The lawyer that is representing the defendant is actually hired by and paid for by the insurance company. And chances are the insurance adjuster is sitting in the gallery watching the trial. So, oh my God. Is sitting in the, but they're never allowed. They get to sit behind this iron curtain, and they're never allowed to be mentioned. And so, don't be fooled, citizens of Texas. When you're called down to jury duty, this plaintiff's lawyer is not going down there to collect against some Joe Q citizen. They're trying to collect against the insurance company. So when you render your judgment, whatever it may be, it's the insurance company that pays it. So it's not technically, it is against driver A against driver B, but theoretically, I mean, it's just not, it's the insurance companies behind the whole thing.
Robert, as always, your shows go by so fast. Tell people how they can reach you and make an appointment to speak to you.
Absolutely. So I office here in Dallas, Texas. You can call me. My phone number is 214-321-8225. That's 214-321-8225. And I can be reached at that number anytime. And after hours, it's forwarded to my cell phone. So I take calls in the evenings, weekends, holidays, whenever. I also have a website. It's rcslawfirm.com. That's simply my three initials, Robert C. Slim, rcslawfirm.com. So that's my website, rcslawfirm.com. And you can visit my website, and there's a case information form available on my website. You can contact me through that. My phone number is on the website, and my email address is also on the website. So I look forward to hearing from anybody who wants to discuss a new case or even discuss any of the topics we covered, Steve.
Robert, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.
All right, Steve. Take care.
Thanks, Robert. That's attorney Robert Slim, an incredible personal injury attorney. Our next show, and I hope we have our guests there. I love doing this show. This show means so much to me, what I've learned. This is probably one of the finest doctors in the country when it comes to weight loss. Now, he's an internal medicine doctor, but he has developed techniques that are like none I've ever seen before. And I love having him on the show. Let me introduce you to Dr. Gupta.
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you again. How's it going?
God, it seems like it's been years, but it's only been a couple months.
Yeah, it's been a couple
Dr.
months.
Gupta, I talk about you all the time. We took your California, Arizona, Nevada show because it was so important, and we now broadcast the show throughout the country.
That's amazing.
You have developed techniques when it comes to weight loss that is like no other. Let's tell people, first of all, about your clinic and about your background.
Sure. So the clinic is called Mindful Wellness. So I started internal medicine. I was working for Optum, initially as a hospitalist and then also an administrator. But a few years ago, I started my clinic, initially called Mindful Weight Loss, now Mindful Wellness. And it really is a combination of evidence-based medicine, a lot of these medicines that have kind of blown up that, kind of most commonly known as Ozempic, but combining it with an actual program where we combine coaching, therapy, mindfulness. We see our patients for an hour initially, have unlimited 30-minute appointments, concierge service, and group classes. And really, we start with this, what I call the biological compassionate approach, in that 70% of us actually struggle with this. And out of 8 billion humans on this planet, as the food system moves everywhere, more people are dying of diseases of too many calories than too few, right? And that shows it's fundamentally not an individual flaw or an individual characteristic or about willpower or discipline, but really this is the nature of our bodies in this world. And really the only thing that leads, I think, someone to logically is really compassion rather than how this is commonly dealt with, and actually in a lot of, unfortunately, even in healthcare, as guilt, shame, judgment and criticism, which actually just makes us want to eat all of these addictive foods way more. So I think it's important to start with that. And only then can we, what I say, look at people's lives with true empathy to figure out the interventions that work, given, we have kids, we have jobs, we have commutes, we have family, all of the busy, stressful things in the modern world, which make this even doubly, triply, quadruply more harder.
So, Dr. Gupta, walk us through when someone calls your office, where do you start it?
So when someone calls us, we first make an appointment with either me, my NPs, another doctor, Dr. Mishra, who's been on the show before, and we see them for an hour initially. And that purpose of that visit is to really, what I advise all my staff is to feel another person's life, right? And I think, going through this world and how we're so conditioned to be so hard on ourselves, it's, I think it's hard to see as an individual where the points are that we need to kind of optimize. But with our compassion approach, we help people see those areas which are actually possible, right? So I think too often the advice always becomes like very cookie cutter, like, oh, you have to like cook more, or you have to do this, you have to do, you have to work out, like the American Cardiology recommended, you have to work out 150 minutes a week, vigorous exercise. I mean, that's not helpful. No one's going to do that if like they're not doing that right now, or they have to get up in the morning, think about their kids, rush them off to school, jump on the computer, get notifications from their work all day, then come home, cook dinner or make dinner, spend time with the kids. Then at 9 p.m., the kids go to sleep, and then they're exhausted. And sometimes people have to do more work or like answer more stuff. Like, it's just really important to kind of really get to know someone's life and figure out where those like 1% changes there are. And from there, we have like unlimited one-on-one 30-minute appointments. So we see the clinician generally monthly, and health coach appointments, as much or as little as people want. But we've seen in multiple studies, just common sense, we're human, we need each other. The more support we have, the better we do.
I think you make a great point. There's so many diet theories out there that are so stringent. It's impossible to do those, and then you get frustrated. And it's That's like perfect. Your program, listen, you can start your program and it's something that's obtainable, where usually a lot of times it's not.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I think that's kind of the huge pitfall, in that every program, everyone, all the advice, all the Instagram posts, all of it are like, you have to change everything about your life. That's the only way you can do this, right? And people can't do that, right? No one can do that. So it's more about finding those areas that it's all possible, but only when done with looking at our lives with compassion, because what that means operationally is everything we do, we take into account our time, energy, and desire. And if you don't take those things into account, whatever you do is not going to work.
So you brought up cookie cutter, and every time when you bring that up, I think about, I just use GNC. You walk into GNC because you want to lose weight, and they give you a pill.
Exactly.
First of all, everybody's body is different. So how can you just give somebody a pill? You being an internist, it's so important doing a history on somebody.
Yes.
So, and I want, because we've got people from all over the United States. You can do your program by telemedicine, right?
Yeah. So, we're boarded in 13 states and growing, right? We can see patients in like probably more than half the population of the United States we can see at this point. And we're steadily, like, I'm working on Oregon and Tennessee as well next. But really, we can do everything online, actually. So like all our appointments is, we have an office in, Manhattan Beach here in California and Las Vegas as well. And I like this hybrid approach. I think I'm going to continue growing in that way, because people around the area, we can do body composition, and there's some advantages, coming in. But I think, like, just for access, so much of everything we do can be done literally from anywhere.
We're getting calls from companies. I call it the skinny injection.
Yeah.
That's the name. And I was amazed how many of these, I'm not going to call them a clinic. You have a clinic that don't even have a doctor on staff that are prescribing these injections.
Yes. And I mean, a lot of these other, like, I've done recon on all these competitors, and they see everyone for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's hard to get a hold of. There's no support. And I would say that some of the things we hear in the media, like some of the ER reports, all of that are because people aren't having the right support system to use these medicines safely, but also, I would argue, effectively. right? Because these are tools, and the system, there's multiple inputs into the system, right? The medicine, I mean, they're true revolutions. There's absolute revolutions in this world. But also, you know, we help people with everything. I say nothing's off the table. We like, you know, obviously nutrition, physical activity, but also like stress. I saw somebody today who, you know, worked several hours during the day. He saw, you know, then he came home with his kids and worked 4 more hours, and really we're brainstorming like, okay, how do we delegate more, right? How do we because so much of this is structural, right? All of the things fundamental in people's lives. Or the other day, I saw somebody, and, you know, she was like, felt that impulse at night, like open up her computer work. I said, okay, let's figure out how, you know, we can spend 30 minutes, like truly relaxing and like 8 p.m., right? Because so much of that need for that food or snack was as a result of that anxious response. And really the practice there was trying to figure out ways to like really activate the parasympathetic system at night so that that decreased desire and the craving was diminished.
Dr. Goop, tell people, first of all, we're getting so many questions from people wanting to know about this injection. And, you know, I'm under a doctor's care that put me on the big O. You have a certain company, first of all, that you like better than the other companies?
No, so there's like, okay, I think there's a lot of confusion because of the names. Even a lot of doctors get confused. It's done for annoying insurance reasons. But I think how I explain it is there are these, normally our body, we have these hunger increasing pathways and hunger decreasing pathways. The whole system is biased towards hunger increasing, but we do have these hunger decreasing pathways. And as food moves down our GI tract, our intestines, pancreas release these fullness hormones called GLP, GIP, CCK, amylin. There's a bunch of them. They go to our brain, they decrease our hunger. They slow our GI tract and make us feel full. So our body normally has this. Unfortunately, they're completely overwhelmed by the modern food system. So now we've created these beautiful molecules that emulate these fullness hormones. And I think it's helpful to remember that every medicine has a molecule name and a brand name. So when we look at ibuprofen, that's the molecule. The brand name is either Advil, Motrin, right? Or we have acetaminophen molecule. The brand name is Tylenol. So now we have 2 medicines that have come out that in this new revolutionary world, they're called semaglutide and tirzepatide. Semaglutide initially came out for diabetes, and it was branded the world famous Ozempic. Then it got rebranded for weight loss, and it was called Wegovy. So Wegovy, Ozempic, semaglutide, same thing. Then we got tirzepatide, and initially came out for diabetes. It was branded Mounjaro. Then it got approved for weight loss, and it was called Zepbound. Okay, so there's only 2 medicines despite all of the myriad of names and everything. So they're both amazing medicines.
It confuses people.
Yeah, they're super. I mean, they're confused. They're objectively very confusing, but like they're both very effective, like great, phenomenal medicines that can really counteract some of the effects of this food system that we have every day. That is putting I don't think like we get how historically and biologically aberrant this food system is, right? It's 70 years old, basically all the humans alive. This is the only food system we've known. But, you know, for the majority of, like for hundreds of thousands of years, the majority of history, even in the last few thousands of years, the mind evolved and developed. So when there's a calorie in our environment, our mind's attention goes to it. We eat as much of those calories as possible and store that on our bodies forever. It's only the last 70 years ago have we figured out a way as society to put all of these extremely addictive and super energy efficient calories onto around us every second of the day, right? So I think that discordance is the fundamental reason for this. So I think these medicines are amazing and help us deal with that. But again, there's multiple pathways, there's multiple inputs. And as our clinic, as Mindful Wellness, we help address all of it.
You know, I got to tell you, Dr. Gupta, I am blown away. I have taken supplements that's supposed to decrease your appetite. I got to tell you, they never really worked for me.
No,
this injection, I got to tell you, I used to be able to eat a large pizza
Yeah.
Now 2 slices, and
Yes.
I'm full. This
Yes.
injection has worked better than anything I've ever tried.
I mean, because it actually is dealing with the pathways, right, that deal with that fullness. But again, like if our ancestors came across a large pizza, like it would be advantageous for them to eat all of it, right? Like
Right.
that's like amazing because there wasn't pizzas everywhere, or you press like 2 buttons on your phone and get like 5 pizzas, right? You couldn't do that before. And that's like that's why this is so hard right now, because the mind is made to eat a large pizza whenever we see it, you know?
We promote you coming on about a week out, and most of the questions that people wanted me to ask you is on the injection. What happens if you come off of the injection? Do you
Yeah,
gain
that's
all the
always a
weight
question.
back?
So, okay. So my answer to that question. So number one, no matter which way people lose weight, they have a high likelihood of gaining weight back again, right? Because of our bodies in this food environment, no matter what you do. So with these injections, right? Like I've seen more than 1,500 people now, right? And you can see so much of people's like eating and patterns and weight are influenced. Like we develop some sort of homeostasis with our environment, right? But then people get jobs, they lose a job, they get married, they get divorced, they have kids, their kids grow up, they have a commute, they get promoted. Something happens, right? That changes their relationship with everything around them, like their routines, the things they eat, the things they order, the people they have to feed, right? All of these things, the stress level. And so I think what we use the medicines help establish that new homeostasis in your life. Unfortunately, the only constants of life is change, and something will change. And so what we do is we go up, we go down, we take people off. And then when that change happens, when we start gaining weight again, we can use these medicines again, right? And to help bring that and get, optimize all of those things again. So I don't think we have to think of it like as like this, I'm on it forever or I'm never on it, right? I think it's more just like anything as a tool. This is another tool we have, a very powerful tool, but we can use it in these ways.
What about this? Oh, here's one from Baltimore. Do you believe that eating vegan will allow you to lose weight?
So we are boarded in Maryland, by the way. So just FYI. So, and I have cousins in Baltimore too. But my answer to this question is that like, there's no right way to eat, right? Like none of the data has shown that there's like, when you look at weight loss, like I probably have come to believe that like eating plant-based proteins probably like will improve your microbiome, and different things. But I think it's more important to think about like how someone's eating like as a whole, right? Because like, for instance, potato chips are vegan as well, right? Like I eat plant-based, my wife's vegan because more for like ethical like reason, my own ethics on that. But like I think that like, for instance, when you look at the blue zone people, like a Japanese population eats a lot of fish, right? So I don't think there's not a right way. It's all about what is productive for you, right? Is it helpful for that individual person, right? Or what, all the other considerations that go into what we eat. I think that like, for instance, it depends. I just think what is possible in someone's life is the best thing. That's the only factor that we get. And I think that's why we don't use this cookie cutter approach. And that's why we get to know people and what they like, what they, some of their ethics, what they want to eat, what they feel like. All of that stuff needs to be taken into consideration, but nothing of these like certainty systems like intermittent fasting or low carb or keto, because we live in an uncertain world. I don't think it's helpful to like do that, right? Like often one of the things I think that maybe elucidates this point a little bit more, like people like, intermittent fasting, then they like eat at 12, but they can never go to this brunch on the weekend or something, right? And I think that like, really it's more, I mean, we always say in our practice is like, it's 80%, not 100, everything we do, and 100's bad. And we say that specifically because we have to take into so many things into account, because one of the things that diet culture completely misses is one of the most fundamental parts about food, which is eating with each other, the community. social elements of food. And when you look at these blue zone people who live forever, community is one of their main factors too, right? So I think the answer to that question is like, and it's not satisfying on a radio show, but it all depends. Like everything else in your life, it depends, right?
You know, I tell you what, what's so sad is by the time people come to you or think about coming to you, they have tried so many things in order to lose weight.
Yeah.
And it gets very discouraging, especially when you gain it all back.
Yes.
And I want people to know that they should pick up the phone. They should call your office and just set up an appointment.
Yes.
Give Dr. Gupta an hour, because you are going to see such a difference in hearing this from a internal medicine doctor versus some company that's trying to push supplements. Because Dr. Gupta, you have really put together an incredible plan that is going to be a lifestyle that people can actually achieve. Tell people how they can reach you.
Yeah, perfect. So you can either just go to mindfulwellness.com. You can make an appointment directly. You could there's a form you could fill out to contact us, or you can call 310-220-4543. Again, 310-220-4543. But the easiest way is probably just go to mindfulwellness.com.
Dr. Gupta, we are so lucky to have you. Dr. Gupta's with us every month, and please give him a call. Thanks, Doctor. I love the beard, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to grow it out. See how it looks.
Looks good.
Thank you.
God bless you, and thanks, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you, Steve.
That's Dr. Vivek Gupta. Listen, if you are a family member, want to lose weight, it would be a wonderful phone call for you. That's it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts. Stay safe. See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.